The empire's true genius lay in its graceful balance, a flexible system that embraced difference, yet held its vast and varied peoples together as one. Perhaps its greatest gift was the long-lasting peace it fostered across lands that had once known little but conflict and unrest. This Pax Persica, as one might softly call it, quieted the storms of warfare, banditry, and piracy, weaving security into the fabric of everyday life. With peace came the gentle flourishing of fields and markets, of art and ideas, things that grow best without the shadow of war. Life under Achaemenid rule was no perfect paradise, nor was it a harsh prison. Experiences varied widely, shaped by where people lived, their place in society, their work, and the tides of history. Still, compared to empires before and after, this realm showed remarkable tolerance, a delicate harmony of diverse cultures thriving within a practical, well-ordered administration that stretched across 3 continents, from the visionary Cyrus, through his son's careful refinements, and the trials of Xerxes' reign. The empire wove a tapestry where millions balanced the rhythms of their local traditions with the innovations of imperial life. It is this rich, complex mosaic, more than tales of kings or battles, that forms the deepest legacy of the first great multinational empire. Much of what we know comes from outsiders' words, often colored by their own views. Yet the art and architecture left behind speak clearly and directly, revealing how this empire wished to see itself, and how it invited others to see it. A story carved in stone and painted in vivid relief. To grasp the beauty and meaning of Achaemenid art, one must first appreciate its revolutionary nature. This was no empire born from a long-standing artistic tradition of its own, rising suddenly onto the world stage from a modest homeland. It encountered the rich legacies of Mesopotamia, Egypt, Libya, and more. Instead of copying one tradition, it blended many weaving elements from these ancient cultures into something new and uniquely imperial. From Mesopotamia came the grandeur of monumental scale and powerful symbols. Egypt contributed masterful precision in stone carving and elegant artistic rules. The kingdoms of Anatolia offered distinctive architectural shapes and decorative patterns. Greek artisans influenced sculptural techniques, while the nomads of Central Asia inspired delicate metalwork. Together, these diverse threads, combined with native Iranian forms, created a visual language, unmistakably imperial, one that whispered unity in diversity. No place shows this harmony more clearly than Persepolis, the empire's ceremonial heart, raised by the son of Cyrus and his successors. Visitors approaching this grand complex would first ascend a gentle, wide staircase, designed not to intimidate, but to welcome, allowing a stately and measured procession upward. At the summit stood the Gate of All Nations, guarded by enormous lamassu, majestic, human-headed winged bulls, borrowed from Assyrian art but reshaped with the empire's own elegant touch. Passing through this gate, one entered the vast upper audience hall. Its ceiling held aloft by towering columns crowned with unique capitals. Pairs of animals back to back, a distinctly Achaemenid innovation. Unlike the heavy, closely spaced columns of Egyptian temples or the squat columns of Greece, these soared slender and tall, filling the space with light and openness, an architectural marvel that required skillful engineering and precise stonework. Along the staircases of this great hall, magnificent reliefs tell a story of imperial harmony. In careful formal procession, 23 nations bring gifts to the great king. Each group wears its own traditional dress, carries goods from their homeland, and moves with calm dignity. These sculptures show a vision of empire, not through force or conquest, but through peaceful allegiance and respect. Unlike the harsh Assyrian images of conquered captives bound and broken, here the tribute bearers walk proudly, preserving their cultures even as they join in the greater imperial story. The very arrangement of the figures speaks volumes. Delegations from different regions alternate, rather than grouping by geography, reinforcing the idea that many diverse peoples stood united beneath one sovereign rule. The artistry carved into these reliefs is truly a marvel of delicate precision and attentive craftsmanship. Every thread of the textiles is carefully woven into stone, capturing intricate patterns unique to each region. Faces emerge with gentle subtlety, portraying distinct ethnic features not as caricatures but as respectful reflections of the diverse peoples of the empire. Everyday objects, vessels, weapons, animals, are rendered with such fidelity that modern scholars can trace their materials and origins across the vast realm. This exquisite detail served as a kind of visual record, a way to show viewers, many of whom would never leave their own province, the rich variety of the empire. The sculptural narrative stretches through Persepolis, extending into the Great Hall, known as the Hall of 100 Columns. Here, reliefs depict the king, enthroned beneath the soaring winged symbol of Ahura Mazda, surrounded by courtiers. Elsewhere, imperial guards stand at attention in perfectly ordered ranks, their arms and attire rendered with painstaking accuracy. Even the treasury walls are adorned with scenes of tribute, echoing those on the upper hall, reinforcing the central theme of many peoples willingly offering support to their shared imperial center. What makes these sculptures especially fascinating is how they were made. A living example of the empire's multicultural spirit. Archaeological finds tell us that artists and craftsmen from across the empire worked side by side on these monumental creations. Egyptian stone carvers lent their mastery of hard stone. Ionian Greek sculptors may have shaped some of the figure's forms. Babylonian and Elamite artisans contributed their unique traditions. The result wasn't a mere patchwork of styles, but a true synthesis. A new artistic language born from many sources but harmonized into a single imperial vision. This spirit of collaboration spread beyond Persepolis to other imperial centers like Susa. Their inscriptions proudly acknowledge the many peoples who built the palaces: goldsmiths from Media and Egypt, woodworkers from Saurians and Egyptians, bricklayers from Babylon, and decorators from both Media and Egypt. Such multicultural cooperation wasn't just practical, it was a statement of imperial identity. Beyond these capitals, grand architectural projects echoed imperial presence throughout the provinces. In Pasargudi, Cyrus's royal park, known from Old Persian as Paradise, brought together formal gardens, flowing waterways, and elegant pavilions, celebrating both the monarch's power and harmony with nature. This concept of a paradise garden would inspire landscape designs, stretching from the Mediterranean far into India for centuries to come. Across the empire's provincial capitals, Sardis and Lydia, Cyzicus on the Hellespont, Xanthos in Lycia, archaeological remains reveal buildings, blending imperial forms with local traditions. These structures physically embodied the empire's flexible governance, upholding central authority while honoring regional customs. The empire's portable arts echo this same grand synthesis. Luxury vessels, precious metals, and elaborate adornments speak of cosmic order and unity. The famed treasure of the Oxus stands as a breathtaking example, its objects marrying technical brilliance with rich symbolism drawn from many traditions. Animal motifs appear frequently, crafted with lifelike anatomical detail, yet arranged in stylized, harmonious designs. One iconic vessel type, the Rhyton, features a carefully cut opening atop an animal protomb, blending artistry and function. Such vessels, made with sophisticated metalworking skills, became prestigious symbols throughout the empire, serving in elite drinking ceremonies that combined practical use with deep cultural meaning. Though textiles have rarely survived the passage of time, contemporary accounts describe magnificent carpets adorned with figures, exquisitely embroidered garments, and richly patterned fabrics commanding great value. The famous Alexander mosaic, created later but likely depicting royal garments, shows intricate patterns and figures woven or embroidered into luxurious cloth, a testament to the empire's textile artistry. Jewelry and personal adornments flourished under imperial patronage, reaching remarkable refinement. Gold necklaces shimmered with delicate granulation. Bracelets ended in finely crafted animal heads. Earrings glowed, with cloisonne inlays. These treasures reveal technical mastery alongside a distinctly imperial aesthetic. Craft traditions blended techniques from all corners of the realm. Egyptian stone cutting, Lydian granulation, and Central Asian animal motifs mingling in a vibrant artistic dialogue. Seals carved from precious stones played a crucial role in imperial administration while expressing a unique artistic language. Official seals combined practical imagery with symbolic power. The royal hero motif, showing a crowned figure overpowering beasts or monsters, appeared on seals throughout the empire, visually reaffirming royal authority wherever documents traveled. Coinage, introduced by the son of Cyrus, added another layer to this artistic and practical tradition. Gold derricks and silver siglos bore consistent imperial imagery. The great king depicted as a poised archer or spearman, instantly recognizable across distant provinces. These coins maintained exceptional standards of weight, purity, and design over centuries, binding the vast realm together through commerce and symbol. Throughout the vast reaches of the empire, commerce flowed steadily, supported by the careful craftsmanship of fine tableware and precious metals that did more than serve a practical purpose. They carried the image of the sovereign far and wide, from the sparkling shores of the Aegean, all the way to the lush valleys near the Indus River. A distinct aesthetic emerged, one that linked distant lands in a shared experience of imperial grandeur. Among the many treasured objects, the Achaemenid loped bull became especially beloved. Its graceful profile, often adorned with delicate rosette motifs at its heart, appeared in numerous forms and materials. For the empire's highest elites, it gleamed in precious metals, while provincial administrators might use finely crafted stone versions. Even those with humbler means enjoyed ceramic imitations, each reflecting a common style that tied the empire's people together. Remarkably, this attention to beauty extended even to the most utilitarian of objects. At Persepolis, for example, a fragmentary brickwater pipe bears an inscription in 3 languages, proudly marking it as the work of the great king himself. This intimate link between the sovereign and the everyday infrastructure of the realm reveals a worldview where order, harmony, and refinement reached from the cosmic heights down to the smallest details of daily life. The influence of Achaemenid art did not remain confined within political borders. In the western regions of Anatolia, East Greek artisans embraced imperial motifs and techniques, blending them into a hybrid style often called Greco-Persian. To the north, Scythian gold treasures from the steppes beyond the Black Sea reflect unmistakable imperial inspiration in their craftsmanship and imagery. Even in Athens, despite political rivalry, subtle Eastern architectural and decorative elements betray the reach of imperial aesthetic influence. Central to Achaemenid artistic values were orderliness, balance, and the harmonious blending of diverse elements. These qualities mirrored the empire's grand ideology, a vision of the world, not as a patchwork of conquered lands, but as a cosmos arranged under just and rightful sovereignty. Art was more than representation. It was an active expression of this order. Consider Persepolis, where the careful spatial organization, the axial symmetry, the hierarchical layout, guided visitors through a journey of imperial harmony. The reliefs of tribute bearers, ascending the grand staircase, celebrate peaceful diversity, united beneath a singular authority. Repeated patterns on imperial textiles and metalwork echoed this sense of cosmic order, reinforcing a message that stretched from monumental architecture to personal adornments. Many peoples, one empire, harmonized under righteous rule. Color, too, played an essential role. Though much of the vibrant paint has faded with time, archaeological evidence reveals that the seemingly austere stone reliefs of Persepolis were originally awash in rich hues. Blue glazed bricks gleamed alongside golden fittings, while colorful textiles hung to brighten grand halls. This once vivid palette created sensory environments that impressed visitors with their majesty, while also conveying layered imperial symbolism. Beyond visual arts, ephemeral yet vital components like music and performance enlivened imperial ceremonies. Contemporary accounts tell of elaborate court music employing instruments gathered from across the empire's vast territories. The reliefs at Persepolis depict musicians accompanying grand processions, suggesting that performing arts like visual art wove together diverse traditions into a uniquely imperial cultural tapestry. The artistic legacy of the Achaemenids did not end with the fall of their empire. Alexander the Great and his successors embraced many of these visual traditions, especially in royal portraiture and court ritual. Later dynasties, the Parthians and Sassanids, ruling much of the same lands, consciously revived and reinterpreted imperial motifs. Even Islamic artistic traditions that later blossomed in these regions preserved echoes of Achaemenid art, particularly in architecture and garden design. Most strikingly, the artistic vision fostered under Achaemenid patronage set enduring standards that shaped courtly arts across Eurasia for centuries. The idea of depicting diverse peoples unified by a single sovereign re-emerged in Byzantine, Islamic and even Chinese imperial art. The Paradise Garden concept inspired landscapes from Moorish Spain to Mughal India. The monumental splendor first achieved at Persepolis became a model for royal architecture across many civilizations. For the first time, an empire created a consistent artistic language spanning 3 continents, making its authority instantly recognizable whether one stood in Egypt's deserts, Anatolia's hills, or the Hindu Kush mountains. This visual coherence helped hold together a realm rich in cultural and linguistic diversity. Behind these artistic achievements lay impressive technological advances. The enormous stone blocks at Persepolis, some weighing over 100 tons, were quarried, transported, and set with astonishing precision, cut to fit with accuracy measured in fractions of an inch. This feat of engineering built on Egyptian and Mesopotamian traditions, but pushed their mastery to new heights. Metalworking also reached extraordinary refinement, especially in gold and silver. Imperial workshops perfected techniques like repousse, chasing, and invisible joining of separate parts, allowing craftsmen to create forms of stunning delicacy. The famous gold and silver rhytons, drinking vessels topped with animal heads, showcase virtuoso skill alongside artistic elegance. Water management was another realm where practicality met beauty. In the empire's arid heartland, sophisticated systems sustained urban centers and lush royal gardens. The qanats, underground water channels, though not invented by the Achaemenids, were perfected under their rule. These ingenious tunnels, sometimes stretching for miles beneath the earth, tapped mountain aquifers and delivered water to settlements with minimal evaporation, ensuring life flourished in even the harshest climates. These ingenious water systems nourished elaborate garden complexes that seamlessly combined practical agriculture with refined aesthetic pleasure. The famed Paradise Garden brought together fruit trees, colorful flower beds, shaded walkways, and gently flowing water features, crafting a designed landscape that boldly proclaimed humanity's mastery over nature itself. Archaeological discoveries at Pasargadae reveal stone channels carved with precisely calculated gradients, engineered not only to move water but to create specific visual and auditory effects. Engineering serving beauty as much as utility. The influence of these imperial gardens stretched far beyond their original locations. The concept of the 4-part garden, divided by intersecting water channels known as the Chahorabagh, radiated outward from Iran into India, Central Asia, and eventually to Moorish Spain, though each culture adapted the basic design to suit local climates and aesthetic preferences. The fundamental concept established under Achaemenid rule remained unmistakably recognizable across vast expanses and centuries. Imperial patronage also spurred remarkable innovations in urban planning. While adapting to established cities like Babylon and Sardis, which required careful negotiation with existing layouts, new urban foundations could implement imperial concepts from the ground up. Archaeological evidence from several such centers reveals rationally planned grids, sophisticated drainage systems, and hierarchically arranged public buildings, all physical embodiments of the empire's values of order, rationality, and centralized control. The vast road networks linking these urban hubs reflected a similar blend of engineering practicality and ideological symbolism. The Royal Road, stretching from Sardis in the west to Susa in the east, featured meticulously maintained surfaces, sturdy bridges spanning major rivers, and regular posting stations that facilitated swift communication and commerce. From this main artery, secondary roads branched outward, weaving a transportation web that unified the sprawling realm in both function and symbolic representation of the sovereign's dominion over space and distance. Maritime infrastructure further connected coastal provinces, with harbor works unearthed at Sidon and port facilities throughout the Persian Gulf, attesting to significant investment in naval capabilities. Imperial fleets, referenced in textual sources, complemented overland routes to create an integrated transport network, unprecedented in scale and efficiency. Military architecture similarly adapted to the empire's diverse defensive needs. Border fortresses guarded crucial mountain passes and river crossings, while garrison towns stationed troops in strategic locations. Provincial capitals incorporated defensive walls and fortifications, blending local building traditions with imperial military specifications. The empire's practical flexibility shone through in its use of regionally appropriate materials, mud brick in Mesopotamia, stone in mountainous zones, demonstrating an approach both adaptive and functional. This adaptability extended into religious architecture as well. The empire actively supported temple construction and upkeep across varied religious traditions. Egyptian pharaohs' temple complexes received additions from several Achaemenid rulers, honoring long-standing local architectural styles. In Anatolia and the Levant, regional shrine customs continued under imperial patronage. The rebuilding of the Jerusalem temple, authorized and funded by the empire, exemplifies this policy. Such religious buildings maintained local identities, while acknowledging imperial authority through inscriptions or subtle design details. Similar patterns of continuity and innovation emerged in domestic architecture. Elite residences across the empire incorporated imperial stylistic elements, columned porticos, distinctive decorative motifs, particular spatial arrangements, while preserving regional construction traditions. This material culture allowed local elites to express both their native heritage and their connection to the broader imperial network. Even ordinary households reflected imperial influence through everyday objects. Excavations have uncovered ceramics, bearing imperial-style decorations, textiles patterned with recognizable motifs, and small personal items infused with imperial aesthetic sensibilities in modest homes throughout the realm. These material goods subtly linked common people to the empire's visual culture, normalizing imperial presence through the fabric of daily life. The scale and complexity of imperial construction projects demanded highly sophisticated management. Administrative texts from Persepolis provide detailed records of how workers were organized, supplied, and compensated during major building efforts. Craftspeople from across the empire were assembled, provided with raw materials sourced from distant lands, and integrated into coordinated teams operating under centralized oversight. This logistical feat, directing multicultural workforces on massive projects, rivals the architectural achievements themselves. Raw materials for imperial projects often traveled astonishing distances. The palace at Susa, according to its foundation inscription, incorporated cedar from Lebanon, gold from Sardis and Bactria, lapis lazuli and carnelian from Sogdiana, turquoise from Turkmenistan, silver and ebony from Egypt, ivory from Ethiopia and India, and decorative stones from Ionia. This global procurement physically embodied the empire's vast geographical scope, while showcasing its impressive logistical capabilities. The skilled artisans who fashioned imperial monuments and luxury goods hailed from equally diverse origins. Administrative records list Egyptian stonemasons, Lydian goldsmiths, Babylonian brickmakers, and Greek sculptors working side by side on grand projects. Their collaborative efforts forged the distinctive imperial style, an artistic synthesis blending techniques and aesthetics from multiple traditions into a new, coherent visual language. These craftsmen were not slaves but highly trained professionals, often organized into hereditary craft guilds with their own internal hierarchies. The Persepolis archives meticulously document their wages, rations, and working conditions. Master artisans of exceptional skill sometimes received special honors and rewards directly from the sovereign, underscoring the high value placed on their expertise. Managing such a diverse workforce demanded exceptional administrative acumen and cultural sensitivity. Designs and instructions had to be conveyed across language barriers. Technical vocabularies from differing craft traditions required harmonization, and work customs rooted in distinct cultural backgrounds needed accommodation. The successful realization of stylistically unified monuments and objects across these divides stands as a remarkable testament to imperial cross-cultural management. The imperial artistic program served both practical political aims and achieved aesthetic brilliance by creating a visual language instantly recognizable as Achaemenid. It legitimized imperial authority across diverse territories by incorporating elements from many traditions. By visually articulating imperial ideology, it acknowledged and respected the cultural heritage of subject peoples, making political messages accessible beyond the reach of inscriptions or proclamations. Above all, Achaemenid art and architecture physically embodied the empire's core proposition that diverse peoples could maintain their distinct identities while participating in a larger, unified whole under just and righteous sovereignty. The ordered procession of tribute bearers on the upper Dryavash Hall, the harmonious blending of architectural motifs from various cultures, and the balanced composition of imperial art on every scale reinforced this central ideology through compelling visual form. When Alexander of Macedon's forces entered Persepolis in 330 BCE, they encountered an environment of unprecedented splendor, technical mastery, and ideological unity. Despite cultural prejudices against Eastern luxury, Greek sources acknowledged the awe-inspiring authority these monuments projected. The subsequent burning of the palace complex, whether deliberately ordered by Alexander or accidentally set ablaze during a revelry, destroyed much of this magnificence. Yet the archaeological remains continue to convey a faint echo of the original grandeur. In the centuries following, the empire's artistic and architectural legacy persisted, influencing successor states and cultures across Eurasia. The Seleucids, Alexander's heirs and much of the former empire, adopted numerous Achaemenid architectural forms and administrative practices. The Parthians and Sassanids consciously revived specific imperial motifs as part of their claims to legitimate succession. Even the Islamic architectural traditions that later flourished in these regions preserved elements of Achaemenid design, particularly in palatial structures, garden layouts, and decorative patterns. Most enduringly, the empire established a model for how monumental art and architecture could express political ideology, integrate diverse cultural components, and craft physical environments, shaping the experience of sovereignty. This model influenced imperial projects from Rome to China, Byzantium to the Mughal courts, laying the foundation for the first truly international royal style. The artistic and architectural principles cultivated by the Achaemenids would continue to inform courtly arts across Eurasia for millennia. Yet, the assassination of Xerxes in 465 BCE marked a critical turning point. Though the empire endured for over a century afterward, maintaining vast territories and a complex bureaucracy, subtle signs of structural weakening began to surface. Artaxerxes I, who ascended the throne after eliminating the conspirators who had slain his father, inherited an empire still brimming with material wealth. The treasury remained full, provincial unrest was minimal, and the administrative apparatus established by Darius the Great functioned efficiently. Still, both external and internal challenges soon tested the new ruler's mettle. Egypt, historically one of the empire's most turbulent provinces, erupted in rebellion under a local leader named Inaros. Encouraged by support from Athens, then building its own maritime empire, and emboldened by previous victories against Xerxes, the Egyptians sought to shake off imperial control. Though the revolt was eventually crushed, it exposed deep provincial dissatisfaction and highlighted the growing ambitions of Athens to destabilize Achaemenid authority in this wealthy and strategically vital region. Artaxerxes responded to these emerging challenges with a notably shrewd and flexible diplomatic approach. Instead of engaging in another costly and uncertain direct military campaign against mainland Greece, he chose to wield gold as a strategic tool. Financial support was channeled to Sparta and various Greek city-states that opposed Athenian dominance, effectively exploiting the deep divisions within the fragmented Greek world. This policy of playing rival city-states against each other proved far more economical and sustainable than open warfare and was continued by later rulers. Around 449 BCE, the Peace of Callias, or a similar accord whose precise details remain debated by historians, formalized the relations between Athens and the empire. This pragmatic treaty appears to have delineated mutual spheres of influence. Athens tacitly acknowledged Persian sovereignty over Anatolia, while the great king conceded Athenian dominance throughout the Aegean Sea. This arrangement demonstrated the empire's diplomatic pragmatism, focusing on essential interests rather than pursuing vengeance or expansionist ambitions. At home, Artaxerxes faced the perennial task of maintaining firm control over powerful satraps, who governed far-flung provinces. These satraps, often chosen from the upper echelons of nobility and commanding considerable military and economic resources, continually tested the limits of their autonomy. To counteract this, the monarch strategically appointed royal princes to govern key satrapies, thus installing trusted members of the royal family as his personal agents. Additionally, imperial officials were frequently rotated to prevent them from entrenching local power bases or developing independent agendas. Court life during this era became increasingly intricate and rich. Access to the sovereign was tightly controlled by elaborate protocols specifying who might approach the throne and under what circumstances. Meanwhile, the royal harem expanded not only in size but in political clout. Queens, queen mothers, and influential concubines played significant roles in the delicate processes of succession and court politics. Eunuch chamberlains, who controlled access to the king's person, amassed considerable behind-the-scenes influence, wielding power often disproportionate to their official titles. This growing isolation of the monarch from direct interaction with ordinary subjects was driven by both practical concerns, security foremost among them, and evolving ideas of royal majesty and sanctity. Yet this distancing also complicated governance. The king's understanding of provincial realities became increasingly mediated and filtered through layers of officials and family members, sometimes obscuring the true state of affairs in the far reaches of the empire. When Artaxerxes I died in 424 BCE, after a reign of 41 years, a brief but turbulent succession crisis erupted. Xerxes II claimed the throne but held power for a mere 45 days, before being assassinated by his half-brother Sogdianus. Sogdianus himself ruled only 6 months before being overthrown by another half-brother, who ascended as Darius II. This rapid sequence of assassinations and power struggles exposed weakening mechanisms for orderly imperial succession. Once established, however, Darius II ruled for nearly 2 decades, overseeing continued Persian involvement in Greek affairs during the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. Imperial policy decisively favored Sparta, channeling financial support that ultimately helped fund the Spartan fleet's victory over Athens in 405 BCE. This outcome served Persian interests by eliminating Athens as a naval power that had previously backed revolts in Egypt and other restive provinces. During this period, the power of the satraps grew increasingly pronounced, especially in western Anatolia. Figures such as the satrap Pharnabazus and his rival Tissaphernes often pursued semi-independent policies. At times they cooperated with the central government, at others they acted according to their own ambitions. The monarch's capacity to enforce authority over these potent regional governors appeared to be waning, though the fundamental administrative structures of imperial governance remained intact. Court intrigue also intensified. Queen Persepolis wielded extraordinary influence at court, particularly in matters of succession. Her favored son, Cyrus the Younger, was granted exceptional authority as commander in western Anatolia. Despite being younger than the crown prince, Artaxerxes II, this appointment would prove fateful. Upon Darius II's death in 404 BCE, Artaxerxes II took the throne. Almost immediately, Cyrus the Younger rebelled. Leveraging his ties with Spartan military leaders and his own considerable resources as satrap, he assembled an army including some 10,000 Greek mercenaries, the famed 10,000 immortalized by Xenophon's. Cyrus marched into the imperial heartland, confronting his brother's larger forces near Babylon in 401 BCE. Though the rebel army initially made gains, Cyrus was killed in battle. With their leader dead, the rebellion collapsed, leaving the Greek mercenaries stranded deep in hostile territory. Their arduous fighting retreat northward, through hostile lands and difficult terrain, ultimately brought them to the safety of the Black Sea coast. A dramatic episode that revealed both the growing factionalism at the empire's highest levels and an increasing reliance on Greek mercenaries in Persian military affairs, trends that would accelerate in the decades ahead. Having survived this serious challenge, Artaxerxes II faced ongoing instability on multiple fronts. Egypt regained independence under native pharaohs around 390 BC, beginning a period of roughly 60 years outside imperial control. In Anatolia, the satraps' revolt saw multiple provincial governors coordinate rebellions against central authority. Although this uprising eventually collapsed due to internal disputes rather than an effective imperial military response, it signaled weakening control in the empire's western territories. Cyprus repeatedly changed hands, with local kings alternately recognizing imperial overlordship or asserting independence with Greek backing. Similarly, coastal cities in the Levant experienced fluctuating loyalties, sometimes submitting to imperial rule, sometimes rebelling or shifting allegiances. While these provincial disturbances did not amount to a comprehensive collapse of the empire, they clearly indicated diminishing central authority over its peripheral lands, and the gradual erosion of the foundations that had once supported the Achaemenid world-spanning dominion. Court politics during this era became increasingly fraught and unpredictable. Artaxerxes II fathered over 100 sons through his numerous concubines, creating a large pool of potential heirs that inevitably sparked fierce factional rivalries and conflicts. As the aging king approached the end of his reign, he formally designated his eldest son Darius as the heir apparent. Yet this decision soon unraveled when Darius was implicated in a conspiracy against his father, and consequently executed, alongside another son caught up in palace intrigues. Amidst this turmoil, Artaxerxes II's younger son Hs skillfully maneuvered through the treacherous political landscape, eliminating rivals and positioning himself as the clear successor. When Artaxerxes II died in 358 BCE, after an impressive 46-year reign, one of the longest in the empire's history, Hs ascended the throne as Artaxerxes III. From the very beginning of his rule, he demonstrated both ruthless decisiveness and administrative competence. He consolidated his power through a bloody purge, executing numerous members of the royal family who could challenge his claim. With his authority secured, he turned his attention to reasserting imperial control over rebellious provinces. Egypt became the foremost challenge, after failed military campaigns in 351 and 348 BCE. Artaxerxes III personally led a massive and well-organized campaign in 343 BCE, which successfully reconquered the wealthy Nile province. This victory ended 6 decades of Egyptian independence, underscoring that, when effectively commanded, imperial military might remained a formidable force. The campaign also replenished the imperial treasury with vast spoils, providing temporary financial stability to the empire. Despite this triumph, the underlying foundations of imperial power were visibly weakening. Greek mercenaries now formed the backbone of the Persian military, with native troops increasingly relegated to secondary roles. While these hired soldiers were often effective in battle, they lacked intrinsic loyalty to the empire, and could sometimes shift allegiances if offered better compensation. This dependency strained the treasury heavily, and introduced a strategic vulnerability into the military apparatus. Meanwhile, provincial governors operated with growing independence, often acting as de facto kings within their territories. The central government struggled to enforce accountability, with traditional oversight mechanisms such as the eyes and ears of the king proving less effective than before. Tax revenues frequently fell short of expectations, suggesting widespread corruption or administrative inefficiency. At court, political intrigue remained intense and deadly. In 338 BCE, Artaxerxes III himself fell victim to a palace conspiracy orchestrated by the powerful eunuch Bagoas. Bagoas placed the king's youngest son, Arceus, on the throne as a puppet ruler. When Arceus attempted to assert genuine independence 2 years later, he was poisoned by the same eunuch, who then installed a distant royal cousin, Darius III, as monarch. This new king, the last of the Achaemenid dynasty, had already proven his military prowess and swiftly eliminated rivals to consolidate his rule. However, scarcely had Darius III secured his throne when an extraordinary threat arose from the west. In the spring of 334 BCE, Alexander of Macedon crossed the Hellespont with an army of around 40,000 troops. igniting a campaign that would ultimately end the empire's existence. The swift collapse of Persian resistance during Alexander's advance has often been cited as evidence of the empire's terminal decline. But a closer look reveals a more complex reality. At the Battle of the Granicus River, soon after Alexander's landing in Anatolia, Persian forces fought tenaciously and nearly succeeded in killing the Macedonian king. During the subsequent Battle of Issus in 333 BCE, Darius III commanded a sizable army that initially held firm against Alexander's troops, before finally breaking under the Macedonians' superior tactics. The climactic Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE saw Darius field a massive force drawn from across the empire, demonstrating that Persian military mobilization mechanisms still functioned on a grand scale. Though defeated once more by Alexander's tactical genius, the Persian army remained a considerable force. Following his defeat at Gaugamela, Darius fled east, intending to raise yet another army in the provinces of Bactria and Sogdiana. But he was betrayed and assassinated by his own satrap Bessus, who attempted to continue resistance under his authority. Alexander, now claiming the Persian imperial title for himself, pursued and captured Bessus, executing him in a symbolic act of vengeance against the final legitimate Achaemenid ruler. The fall of the Achaemenid Empire was thus less the result of total internal collapse, and more the consequence of an extraordinary external challenge, arriving at a moment of pronounced internal weakness. Had Alexander not emerged, the empire might well have endured for several more generations. Throughout history, many empires have weathered longer stretches of weak leadership, fiscal strain, and provincial autonomy. The empire's misfortune was to face its greatest external threat, just as its internal resilience was at its lowest ebb, reflecting on the century between Xerxes' assassination and Alexander's conquest. Certain patterns of decline are clear. Monarchs became increasingly isolated behind elaborate court ceremonies, reducing their direct awareness of conditions throughout the vast realm. The growing influence of the royal harem, eunuch chamberlains, and palace officials created competing power centers that complicated centralized governance. Succession struggles became more frequent and violent, disrupting administrative continuity. Financial challenges mounted as early imperial wealth dissipated amid administrative corruption, heavy military expenditures, especially payments to mercenaries, and the costly lifestyles of the court and nobility. Revolts in rich provinces like Egypt intermittently reduced the flow of tax revenue. The imperial policy of appointing royal princes and close relatives to govern key satrapies, intended to secure loyalty, often backfired by fostering extravagant provincial courts that drained rather than generated resources. Militarily, increasing dependence on Greek mercenaries was both a symptom and a cause of decline. While indispensable in battle, their high costs strained finances and their conditional loyalty posed strategic risks. Native cavalry drawn from the noble class of the imperial heartland remained formidable. But the quality of infantry forces apparently declined. The complex coordination of multi-ethnic armies, once a great strength of the empire, became increasingly challenging amid rising provincial autonomy. Yet, despite these signs of weakening, remarkable continuities endured. The basic provincial administrative structure, originally established under Darius I, remained largely intact. The imperial road and postal networks continued to function, supporting communication and governance across the vast territories. The empire's multilingual bureaucracy, complex legal frameworks, and extensive commercial networks continued to function, albeit with diminished effectiveness. Even as political control weakened, the cultural and economic integration of the sprawling imperial territories endured. Alexander's ability to make use of the existing imperial machinery following his conquest attests to its ongoing viability. He retained much of the administrative system, employed numerous former Persian officials, and utilized the established roads and treasury systems. Had he encountered a completely collapsed state, such continuity would have been impossible. Instead, he inherited a sophisticated imperial infrastructure, one experiencing institutional fatigue, rather than outright failure. In many respects, the prolonged phase of imperial decline highlighted the resilience of the foundational systems crafted in the empire's early days. The fact that such a vast empire spanning diverse cultures and geographies could sustain its core structures for over 2 centuries, despite episodes of weak leadership and external pressures, stands as a testament to the exceptional accomplishment of its founders. In the spring of 334 BCE, a young monarch from the northern fringes of the Greek world crossed the Hellespont into Anatolia. At just 22 years old, Alexander of Macedon led an army of approximately 40,000 soldiers. While formidable, this force was only a fraction of the military resources theoretically available to his opponent, Darius III. Few foresaw that within a mere 4 years, this youthful Macedonian commander would dismantle the largest empire the world had yet witnessed. Several factors converged to make this moment exceptionally precarious for the Persian imperial structure. Darius III had only recently ascended the throne through the machinations of the eunuch Bagoas, bypassing normal succession practices. Although he swiftly removed rivals to secure his authority, he had little time to solidify personal loyalty networks vital for effective governance. The imperial treasury, while temporarily replenished following the reconquest of Egypt, remained strained by decades of rebellions, military campaigns, and administrative corruption. The bureaucratic system operated, but with reduced efficiency and weakened oversight. Provincial governors often acted with considerable independence, complicating coordinated responses to external threats. Most crucially, the young king invading imperial territory was no ordinary adversary. Alexander had inherited from his father, Philip II, a reformed Macedonian army blending disciplined infantry, shock cavalry, and advanced siege technologies into a highly flexible and coordinated fighting force, unlike anything previously seen in the Mediterranean. Trained from childhood in warfare and inspired by heroic epics, Alexander combined tactical brilliance with boundless ambition. He also benefited from substantial intelligence on Persian lands, obtained through reconnaissance and Greek observers who had served or traveled in the empire. The Greek mercenaries who had traversed the imperial core after the Battle of Cunaxa, the famed 10,000, had exposed the empire's vast scale, but also its potential weak points. Their narrative, recorded by Xenophon, offered invaluable strategic insight for any would-be invader. The first major clash between Alexander and Persian forces took place at the Granicus River in northwest Anatolia. Shortly after crossing, local satraps assembled roughly 20,000 troops, including many Greek mercenaries, to confront the invaders. The battle nearly ended Alexander's campaign before it began. During the initial cavalry engagement, the Macedonian king suffered a potentially fatal blow to his helmet, but was saved by the quick action of a commander. Surviving this narrow escape, Alexander's forces ultimately prevailed due to superior tactical coordination. The Persian army, composed of contingents under multiple commanders lacking unified command, was unable to match the integrated operations of Alexander's combined arms approach. This pattern, smaller, better coordinated Macedonian forces, defeating larger Persian numbers, would recur throughout the campaign. Following this victory, Alexander made a symbolically important decision. Instead of pushing directly inland toward the imperial core, he advanced southward along the Anatolian coast, systematically capturing coastal cities and dismantling Persian naval bases. This campaign effectively neutralized the substantial Persian fleet by depriving it of friendly ports, removing what might have been a decisive defensive advantage. During this coastal campaign, Alexander displayed both military genius and political savvy at cities like Miletus and Halicarnassus. Employing sophisticated siege techniques, he overcame determined resistance. Simultaneously, he positioned himself as a liberator to Greek cities, under Persian control, while strictly enforcing discipline among his troops, to prevent alienating local populations through looting or abuse. The most famous episode of this phase occurred at Gordium, where Alexander encountered the legendary Gordian knot. According to tradition, whoever could unravel this intricate knot would become ruler of Asia. After a brief attempt at a conventional solution, Alexander dramatically cut through the knot with his sword, an act symbolizing his direct, decisive approach to seemingly insurmountable problems, and convincing many observers of his destined victory. By the summer of 333 BCE, Alexander had secured western Anatolia and was moving east into Cilicia. Recognizing the gravity of the threat, Darius III assembled a sizable army to confront him. Ancient sources claim Persian forces numbered in the hundreds of thousands, though modern estimates suggest around 80,000 troops, a significant numerical advantage over Alexander's army. The two armies met at Issus, where the coastal plain narrows between mountains and the sea. This constrained terrain negated much of Persia's numerical superiority, enabling Alexander's disciplined forces to maintain formation against the larger enemy. The Macedonian king personally led his elite companion cavalry in a decisive charge aimed directly at Darius, who occupied the traditional center of the Persian line. As the cavalry breached the imperial command position, Darius chose to flee rather than risk capture or death. A strategic retreat that, however, precipitated the collapse of Persian resistance in the battle. The imperial camp, royal family members, and vast treasure fell into Alexander's hands. Alexander's treatment of the captured royal women, Darius's mother, wife, and daughters, demonstrated his political acumen. Rather than subjecting them to the brutal fate typical for female captives in ancient warfare, he accorded them respect and honor befitting their status. This chivalrous conduct served multiple purposes. It portrayed Alexander as a legitimate ruler rather than a mere conqueror, opened potential avenues for negotiation with Darius, and impressed local populations with Macedonian discipline and restraint. Following this victory, Alexander again made a strategic choice that surprised many contemporaries. Instead of immediately pursuing Darius deeper into the imperial heartland, he turned south toward Phoenicia and Egypt. This decision reflected both military calculation and Alexander's evolving vision of empire.